We turn now to a subsector of the logistics space. Gray mentioned it. It came up earlier today, and that's cold storage. It's one of those formerly known as niche strategies, which is no longer niche. Ron mentioned in his presentation, it's come up 2 or 3 different times. It's a different kind of logistics, but it's benefiting from some of the same trends that we've seen elsewhere. Our next speaker is Justin Gleason from PGIM. He'll tell us what PGIM sees in its crystal ball in terms of the growth of the cold storage subsector. Please, Justin.
Great, thank you, Brad. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Take that as a yes, but no,
yes.
Thank you, Brad. So I'm Justin Gleason. I'm the portfolio manager for PGIM Real Estate's flagship Core Plus fund, PRESA 2. It's a $14 billion diversified fund with a 40-year track record. We invest across all the major property types and regions, and predominantly through an income and growth strategy. And one of the challenges we face in our investment strategy, particularly these days, is how to deliver the plus in Core Plus, especially in this low yield environment where there's just an absolute mountain of capital chasing what I would consider a fairly narrow band of investment strategies. So most of the capital out there is competing to get in front of sectors that are really directly benefiting from these demographic shifts and changes in consumer behavior, and we saw that in many of the previous presentations. And at PGIM Real Estate and my fund in particular, we're part of that crowd. We're active investors in traditional logistics and multifamily, particularly through value add and development. But in addition to investing in a lot of those same strategies, a lot of other investors are seeking, we've really looked for ways to invest along similar themes, but where the risk premium hasn't been compressed by the weight of capital. And one of those sectors we've identified is the cold storage sector. So in 2019, we entered into a joint venture with Bridge Development Partners to aggregate a portfolio of cold storage properties, really through acquisitions and development. So it's early days in that program, and I'll talk about our most recent investment towards the end. But I'll first take a few minutes to kind of go over the landscape of cold storage in general. So cold storage is generally viewed as a subset of the larger logistics and warehouse sector. And as a percentage, it's a very tiny piece of it. So it comprises only about 1 to 3% of the total warehouse space within the US. In terms of who uses it, we're really talking about the food industry as the primary user base. They total about 88% of the total cold storage usage. And within the food industry, it spans really all segments of the food industry. So you're looking at producers, wholesalers, and retailers. So other, much lesser sort of users of cold storage would be also the pharmaceutical and floral industries as well. And notably, historically, sort of cold storage has not been widely owned by institutional real estate investors. Instead, what you have, there exists a bit of a duopoly today, where there's 2 large operators who own more than half of the total cold storage inventory out there. But increasingly, we're seeing an increasing number of smaller operators, of new entrants, and more recently of real estate investors getting into the space. And we'll discuss, I think all these groups are seeing that there is going to be increased demand for space, and particularly for facilities that are providing access, to major population centers, within a short period of time. So let's just give a backdrop of how cold storage physically really differs from traditional warehouse space. So first, it's all the obvious things you would expect from a warehouse that's basically designed to keep things cold, right? So you're going to have insulated walls, insulated ceilings. And you're going to have highly sophisticated cooling equipment with high levels of power coming into the facility and high levels of redundancy for continuation purposes. And historically, these are really things you can add to an existing warehouse. So you may have heard it referred to as sort of building a box within a box. So kind of converting a dry warehouse, or at least a portion of it, into cold storage. And you do see that quite a